coffee crew. Welcome back to all my besties. Hey, we finally made it to the season 2 finale. Go us. Quick personal update before we get into it. I did do my 5K. I pushed too hard at the start because I am apparently incapable of running smart and can't ease into things. Kind of all or nothing, kind of pop and then it's the best way I have to describe it. Now, I did finish in 39 minutes and 55 seconds, so it was under 40 minutes, and I'm going to call it a win. I shaved a couple minutes off my time last year. Now we start training to do a 10K next year. Just another step on my way to my ultimate marathon, hopefully by the time I'm 50. Every race, I try to add either a speed or distance. Maybe one day I will learn to do the smart start. Now, all season long, we have been talking about systems. Who profits, who controls, who designs, who gets to play. Today, we're going to do the last piece. The piece that smacks you in the face once you realize what it is. And that's the language. The language that wraps around power and helps make it invisible. Remember when you were a kid and your parents would tell you that it's not what you say, but how you say it? And yes, that is true for teenage snark. I have 2 boys. I can attest to that. The opposite is actually true when it comes to talking about systems. It is what you say. It's the words you choose to protect the people at the top by quietly making sure we're all looking somewhere else. Words are more important than you realize. And once you can learn to see, you can't unsee them. So let's figure this out. The words are doing work. The media does not have to lie to influence you. And it's actually a big misconception that everything they say is a lie or half truth. See, you don't have to lie about things to get the feeling you want. All you have to do is choose softer words for some people and harder words for others. Word choice alone can shape perception. And it does it quietly in ways that most people are never conscious about. Let's look at some examples. When 2 groups are in a conflict, the word clashes implies mutual aggression. It gives you this image of Sparta on one side, Athenians on the other, sparks flying as their spears and shields meet in the middle for a big clash. But the word massacre implies something very different. You take the same group of people, but this time the image that comes to you might be Sparta invading the camp while the Athenians are asleep and unarmed. It's the same people, a conflict, but the words paint a different picture in your head. Word choice is not neutral. It's a decision. It is a color on a canvas that's deciding what you see. Another one is undocumented versus illegal. Both can describe the same legal status. One description makes it sound like a missing document, a bureaucratic nightmare that we've all experienced. A box wasn't checked right, or the wrong code was typed in. But the other describes a person as if they're a criminal. A warlord sneaking in the trunk. When you call a person illegal, you're making a moral judgment about the actual human being and not a factual statement about a visa or immigration status or paperwork. Both can refer to the same situation. A person without current immigration paperwork in order. But the word choice decides how you feel about that person before you even know a single thing about them. Officer involved shooting. Now let's talk about this one, because the situation will already be painted by your personal experiences with the police before we even get into the headline. They use 6 words that manage to remove the subject entirely. Officer involved. Passive. Bureaucratic. Implies unwilling involvement rather than personal action. Comparing it to a police officer shot. Same moment. Completely different accountability in the sentence. And both are plausible wordings. And the choice of which one tells you which way they want you to think about the situation before you even get to the facts. This is what passive voice does as a tool. Mistakes were made. Okay, by who? Well, nobody. The sentence doesn't tell you. The gun discharged. Well, guns don't discharge themselves. Someone pulled a trigger. He was killed paints it as an outcome, as if death wasn't necessarily the wanted result. But she shot him names the actor and implies intent. The first one buries the person who did it. The second one names them. Every time you hear a passive voice around an incident involving power, ask yourself, who got erased from this sentence? Why did they get erased? Softening language for the powerful is a pattern so consistent, you can put it in the sun is coming up tomorrow column. Politicians, they misspeak, or their intent was misconstrued. Other people, though, regular people, well, they lie or falsify. Corporations engage in creative accounting, while regular people commit fraud. Executives make errors in judgment. Regular people, well, they make criminal decisions. The same behavior described in entirely different shades of moral register. And it all depends on who behavior it is. Think of it in the terms of color. It's like lilac versus violet. They're both purple, different shades. Completely different feeling. You have hardening language for the powerless, works in the same way, but in reverse. This time to shift blame. The same behavior that gets described as innovative for one group might get described as devious or worse from another. Protesting downtown is rioting when one group does it, and demonstrating their First Amendment right when another. And this is especially visible, extremely consistent when you add race to the mix. The color of a person's skin changes the word choice around them, in the headlines, in the police reports, and the way anchors choose to describe them. And this is not a conspiracy theory. It's documented, studied, and it's a consistent pattern that has been taught in colleges. It's not a one-off occurrence. And it needs to be called out if we want any of it to change. This is not a left or right issue. The language machinery protects whoever is currently in power, and more importantly, whoever is currently cutting the checks. This is why when news stations are bought or change hands, it's important to notice. It has worked this way under every administration and across every political party. And the same is also true for social media influencers. See, power has noticed that in order to have more access to younger generations, you got to get away from traditional news. So they apply the same thing, just now it's going to influencers instead of CNN. The first step is seeing through it and understanding that it exists, and more importantly, acknowledging it. All right, people, time for this season's Last Stitch Happens, or what I like to call, How Is This My Life Chaos? And as typical, when I can't think of a story that matches the topic for the week, life, then, well, usually 98% of the time, my husband will hand it to me on a silver platter. Like, here, honey, don't worry about thinking of one. We'll got it. So my husband throws back out lifting the dog. Yep, lifting the dog into the car to go on our family walk. For some reason, my dog will not jump into the car. He just won't do it. His 100-pound ass will put his front paws up on the tailgate and then look at you and wait for you to do the rest. Now, I didn't see the actual moment it happened. I was inside. I came out and he was like limping around. You know, if you've ever watched wrestling when they do like the body slam and then the guy gets up and he's grabbing his back and he's that's the way he looked. So I asked him what happened and he said he hurt himself. And I said, okay, do you need to sit down? Do you need to skip the walk? And he says, no, I'm hurt, not injured. I'm fine. Hurt, not injured. Because apparently in my husband's personal dictionary, these are two entirely different conditions with entirely different treatment protocols. Hurt means you walk it off. Injured means you have to go get medical attention. And the distinction between the two is made entirely by him in the moment based on whether or not he wants to stop what he's planning to do. So I'm trying to explain to him that when you push through hurt, that's frequently how you become injured. That these are not two separate categories, but they're a spectrum. And you're currently somewhere on it. If you keep heading in this direction, is where you're going to end up in the injury zone. Depending on whether you listen to your body or your stubbornness. He disagrees. And then decides he's going to drive. And couldn't even reach the door handle to shut the door. So I send him back in the house while I took the kids and the dog on their walk. Then I come home and I gently encourage, repetitively, to get him to go to urgent care. And the doctor says, I can see you hurt. Which immediately brought upon the whole discussion again back to hurt versus injured. And I will say, I did get a look from her validating me and completely sympathizing with like, yeah, I got one too. So I have since added these words to what I'm calling the Husband Thesaurus. You know, it's a collection of words that mean something very specific in his world and something very different in the real world where the rest of us live. Fine means I don't want to talk about it, and if you keep asking me, I'm going to get pissed. And if you tell him a few minutes, you got 1, maybe 2 minutes at best. And I'll do it later means I will do it when the consequences of not doing it become unavoidable. And the new one, hurt, means I am injured, but I have decided that I don't have time for it today. The episode story writes itself, Coffee Crew. The words we choose shape the reality we allow ourselves to be in. My husband chose the word hurt so that he wouldn't have to stop what he was doing and go to the doctor. And it worked until it didn't. Final update? Well, he had to push his vacation ahead a couple weeks so he could get time off to heal his back. So in the end, hurt, not injured, got him a week off of work and an excuse to not do the honey-do list I had waiting for his planned vacation. Language really does shape reality, sometimes in a way that makes absolutely no sense. All right, let's talk about what happens once you see it. A great thing about learning this skill, once you name the pattern, is that you will start noticing it everywhere. In the news, in your feed, in advertising, in TV shows, movies, in everyday conversations, including, as we just established, with your husband. And the first place to practice is in the headlines. Who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who gets the harshest possible words out of all the other options of words they could think of? When a wealthy person commits a financial crime, the headlines will often lead with their credentials or their position. CEO Tom Smith, Congressman John Smith. When someone without wealth does, the headline will often lead with their race, status, or their neighborhood. Somalia immigrant did. Man from Oakland did. So before you've even read a single fact about the story, the headline has already painted a picture of this person in a positive or negative light. All of those words have emotions attached to them, even if you're not consciously aware of it. Both sidesism is its own form of language manipulation, and it's worth naming also, specifically because it's becoming more of a daily occurrence. It's the practice of treating two unequal things as if they're equal, because in presenting both sides, it sounds like it's fair and balanced. But some things do not have an equivalent of the other side, because not everything is fair and balanced. For example, when you present verified scientific consensus alongside a fringed, disproven opinion and call it balanced, you're not being fair. What you've done is you've distorted the truth and actually given unspoken credit to something that if you were to present it by itself, it doesn't have any. When you present documented evidence of harm alongside of a denial and claim them two perspectives, you have protected the person causing the harm. Balance is not always neutral. Sometimes it's choice to protect someone or to cause harm. This connects to everything we've talked about throughout the season. In episode 13, we talked about who profits from the system. In episode 14, we talked about the politics baked into the tools. 18, we traced the manufactured rivalry playbook from the 90s to social media. Underneath all of it, the one thing that connects them the most is the language that makes the machinery run invisibly. They have become so effective at it that they can apply it anywhere. The outrage gets engineered more easily when the words themselves are already doing the framework. When they invoke feelings right off the bat with a few choice words that highlight those specific feelings. The rivalry feels real when the word choice in every headline confirms it, even if the facts don't support it. That system stays protected when the language protects it. The difference between persuasion and manipulation is awareness. Persuasion gives you the real information and makes a case for a conclusion. That's what I try to do on the show. I show you the dots, I show you how I think they connect, and then I let you decide if you think they connect too. What manipulation does is controls the information you receive so the conclusion feels like it's your own idea. They only show you certain dots while hiding the other dots, and this leads you to believe that they can only connect in one way. Both of these situations uses language, but only one of them actually respects you. This is a learnable skill, commonly called critical reading. It's about not just accepting the words as they're presented, but asking, who wrote this? And who benefits from it being framed this way? Noticing the passive voice, noticing the word choice, and what words are around different groups. Figuring out what is named, and more importantly, what is not named. It does take practice, and it kind of requires you to slow down in a media environment that is designed to make you react fast. The shorter and shorter they make things, so you don't have time to focus, to think. It's better and better for them to constantly keeping that machine running faster and faster. You know, it's why we went from getting our news from hour-long shows like 60 Minutes to getting it in a short TikTok video. But hope's not lost. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to notice it. And that is one of the most useful skills you can build today. All right, coffee crew, brews news time. Last one of the season. As you know, I like to date and timestamp these. It is June 3rd, 2026, 3:50 p.m. Yes, I am way behind today, thanks to my husband's throwing me off with his hurt, not injured. I want to start by noting that this episode is literally about language. So pay attention to word choices in this segment, because the news is their favorite playground for these tactics, and it's a good place to sharpen your skills. Story 1, as always, is Epstein. Bondi finally testified, and it got us nowhere. Pam Bondi appeared before the House Oversight Committee on May 29th for a closed-door transcribed interview. Again, just like Mr. Lutnick, transcribed interview, not a sworn oath deposition. She defended the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files, admitted that redaction errors, or a more official way of saying mistakes, were made. Redaction errors is the phrase she used for failures that exposed survivors' identities while protecting the powerful. She said she was assured by the team reviewing the documents that everything required under the Epstein Files Transparency Act had been produced. She then shifted the blame for the document review process to Todd Blanche and Kash Patel, saying they oversaw it. From my understanding, from what is being said by the Democrats, there was a lot of I don't recalls from 6 months ago. And she was accompanied by DOJ officials that said she wouldn't answer that because it was an interview and not a deposition. This is why the Democrats are criticizing these interviews. Notice the language. Redaction errors, not victims were exposed. Not the system that was supposed to protect survivors failed. Redaction errors. A bureaucratic, passive, nobody in particular at fault phrase for something that had a devastating real-world impact on real people who had been through enough. Now, the transcript is going through its review process. It will supposed to be released. However, just like Lutnick, the video will not. Comer, again, blocked the recording. Survivors waited outside. 2.5 million documents are still unreleased. Story 2, I want to talk about Delaney Hall. This story is made for this episode again because the language being used around it is doing exactly what we've just spent the past 2 segments describing. Delaney Hall is an ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey, run by a private company called GEO Group under a $1 billion 15-year government contract. Now, mind the dog. Detainees have reported maggots in their food, lack of adequate medical care, 1 death in December, filthy bathrooms, abusive guards, and being threatened with deportation to Ebola-stricken countries. Some of the women detained there for months are now pregnant, which by itself kind of screams the need for oversight. Every single detainee in the facility participated in the hunger strike. Senator Andy Kim, a sitting United States senator, went to inspect the facility and was pepperballed and tear gassed outside. House members who toured the facility called the conditions shocking to the conscience. House Minority Leader Jeffries visited on May 31st and said they witnessed unsanitary conditions, inadequate medical care, and unhealthy food. Now here is the DHS response, and I want you to listen to the words. DHS says detainees are the worst criminal illegal aliens, that they receive comprehensive medical care from the moment they arrived, that this is a detention center, not a luxury accommodation, and then denied the hunger strike even took place. The worst of the worst, criminal illegal aliens, not people, not detainees, not human beings in the facility where a senator was gassed for trying to check on them. The worst of the worst. Yet the statistics for people captured by ICE, according to their own websites, does not match those words. You can have whatever position you want on the immigration policy. That's not what this is about. That is not why I'm highlighting this. What this is about is a government agency using language specifically designed to make you feel that whatever conditions these people are held in, they deserve. That the reports from lawmakers who went inside and saw it with their own eyes are less credible than a press release with gently worded headlines. That a senator getting tear gas for doing oversight, the oversight is somehow the problem. The language is doing the work. It's time for us to do our work and notice it. And then for the last story, I just want to do a little brief update. We talked about last week with the IRS settlement with Trump. So here's a brief update. After the anti-weaponization fund drew massive public attention and backlash, the tax immunity addendum buried in the same settlement came under serious legal scrutiny. Trump quietly dropped the broad, forever barred tax immunity language from the settlement. And as of now, the $1776 billion fund is also being dropped. The permanent tax shield is gone. When enough people noticed the language got changed. That's not nothing. And that is why this is a skill that is important to build and apply to every headline. So how do we reclaim our own language? Well, naming things accurately is an important act of resistance. The Epstein case is one of the clearest examples I can give you. For years, in court documents, in news coverage, in the mouths of defense attorneys, the victims were called young women. That's a very specific color of description. A very lilac word, young women. That phrase carries a specific implication. Adult, capable of consent, grown enough to make informed choices. The words shouldn't be a soft lilac to blunt the impact. This situation needs words that punch you in the gut violent. They were children. They were girls. Some were as young as 13. The choice to call them young women was not a neutral description. It was a legal and rhetorical strategy designed to blur what actually happened and make you less angry about it. And the media repeated it over and over because that was the language in the official documents. That was, again, the wording used to protect the powerful and make it easier to do things, like hand out probation for violating children. Calling them children is not inflammatory. A 13-year-old is a child. It's accurate. And accuracy in this case is what will bring accountability. So let's shake off their system. It wasn't designed for us anyway. You do not have to accept the framing that you're given. When someone tries to paint you in a way that doesn't fit, you're allowed to reject it. When a headline tells you how to feel about someone before you even know the facts, you're allowed to slow down and not let them push you right into the next one. When a policy gets named in a way that sounds completely different from what it actually does, and this happens constantly on both sides, you're allowed to look at it. What does it actually do? And name it that instead. There's a reason they give these legislations these easy to remember names. Legislation in itself is often very long and dry, and it has to say, line by line, what it actually does, showing you all the dirty brown for what it is. Flashy names, they make you feel like it's bright, it's yellow, it's colorful flowers. Look at my bright colors. They want you to ignore the dirty brown it grew in. It's kind of like a crochet pattern. When you get a crochet pattern, they use abbreviations to describe the rows of the pattern, row by row, stitch by stitch. SL for slip stitch, CH for chain. But they don't do what good pattern writers do and give you the key at the start. You look at the pattern, and usually right at the beginning, near the materials you need, is the abbreviations and what they mean. See, legislation has to tell you what stitches to use, but they don't have to spell out to you what those stitches actually mean. It makes it easier to hide the flaws in the design. And this applies to the language you use about yourself too. And we talked about this, before. Earl, that bastard self-doubt voice, uses very specific language on purpose. Earl doesn't say you made mistakes. He whispers, you always do this. Earl doesn't say, this was hard. He whispers, you can't handle anything. Earl loves giving you all the harsh colors and none of the soft ones. The language is designed to feel like a permanent verdict rather than a passing description. But you're the pattern maker. So you can create your own list of abbreviations and write your own pattern. You're allowed to call it what it actually is. A hard day. A moment. Not a life sentence. The best way to counter all the language power is to stay curious. Stay skeptical and stay connected. But what's really important is to do all three together. Because skepticism without curiosity becomes cynicism. And that just makes you want to give up. And curiosity without skepticism becomes gullibility. And that makes you easier to manipulate. And connection is what keeps you from doing either one of those alone in a room by yourself in an echo chamber where the algorithm wants you. Isolated with the words and meanings that they choose. But not us, Coffee Crew, because the Coffee Crew is connection. And we're going to use it to paint our own damn picture. All right, Coffee Crew. Last card of the Suit of Wands. Last shuffle happens of season 2. Take a deep breath. We end on a strong note with the King. Close your eyes. Feel the words and emotions they bring. The scene is the throne room. The throne sits in the center of the card. Random flames sparking and crackling up and around it. A beam of light shines down from somewhere above, catching the throne and the figure sitting in it, like the spotlight knows exactly where to point. Its job is to highlight the power in the room. The king is a large, proud lion. A crown rests on his head. Red cloaks with gold accents drape his body. He is sitting upright, one foot propped on a random urn, an arm resting on his knee, easy and certain. A gold sword in his hand, not raised, not threatening, just present, ready. In his hand because it belongs there. He belongs on that throne because he decided so, not because it's somewhere someone told him to sit. He is staring straight ahead, not tense, not braced, not performing, just in it. Everything about this card crackles with energy, the flames, the light, the presence of him. And he sits in the middle of all of it, completely calm. He is not afraid of his power. He is not overwhelmed by it. He knows he controls it all. And that knowing is enough. He doesn't need to prove it. Upright, the King of Wands is mastery, vision, leadership that comes not from position, but from genuine competence and intention. This card shows up when you have done the work, developed the skill, and are ready to lead, whether that means leading a room or just leading yourself. The king does not bluster. He does not perform. He simply knows what he is doing and acts accordingly. This card is an invitation to step into your own authority. Not borrowed authority, not authority that depends on someone else's permission. Yours. Earned. Real. Painting with the colors you choose, not the ones chosen for you. Reversed, the King of Wands asks where you are using your fire impulsively rather than intentionally. Where the energy is real, but the direction is scattered, unfocused, or driven by ego rather than purpose and intent. This card reversed is not about the absence of power. It's power without a rudder. The question it asks is, what are you actually building? And is that what you want to be building? Or is it what you were told to build? The king sits on his throne surrounded by his flames, but he's not being burned. He has learned to live with his fire, to use it, to direct it. That is the whole suit of wands in one image. Every card, from the ace to the king, has been about learning to do exactly that. The fire was always there. The work was always learning where and how to aim it. So take this suit with you into the break. No matter where you are in your own journey, whether you are still learning where the flames are, or how to aim them, or figuring out what to use them to build for yourself and not anyone else. All right, coffee crew. That's it. It's a wrap. Let's do our happy dance. We did it. So let's talk about some of what we did this season. We talked about moral panics and the system behind tools. We talked about player agency and the illusion of choice. And we talked about being tired and just carrying too much. We also talked about manufactured rivalry and who profits from the fight itself. About relationships and the gray areas where most of real life lives. And today we tied it all together and named the language that makes it all possible. Remember, the fire is always yours to control. The work is learning how and where to aim it. So next season, we're going to move into the cups, which is a completely different energy. More water, more emotion, more depth. I've been thinking about doing some guest spots, and they're not going to be interviews. It's going to be just kind of like conversations over coffee where you get to tag along while I sit and bullshit. Kind of like now, but there'll be another person. I have a couple of people in mind I want to reach out. So if I get some positive feedback, then it will do it. If not, then you'll just get me. Well, either way, you're getting me. I will be taking at least the month of June off because for some reason, June is just very busy for me. School lets out, my husband's birthday, Father's Day. It's also our wedding anniversary. And now my husband's impromptu back vacation. Meaning now I got to figure out where I'm moving everything on my honey-do list. Because let's be honest, I'm just going to end up doing it myself. So I'm thinking maybe after 4th of July, we'll come back, hit the ground running. My anxiety is already telling me that my non-zero download streak is going to break and you guys are all going to forget that I exist. But that's a me and an Earl problem, not a you problem. While I'm off, I'll be on Instagram and Facebook posting blanket progress, pet chaos, photo proof of however Stitch happens decides to show up in my daily life, because it always does. You can come find us at coffee.crochet.conversation on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. You want to tag me in some things you're working on, I'd love to see it. I want to say thank you. We really grew, especially towards the end of the season. And Cloud has opinions about that. See, she's thanking you too. And it is thanks to you guys. Every like, every share, every follow, every word of mouth recommendation, it just helps us get larger and larger. I see every number and I'm grateful for every single one. If you're new, it's a good time to get caught up on the old episodes. If you really want to see me walk around like a baby deer, then go back to the beginning. If you've been here for the start, thank you for staying at this table while I figure out how to control my own fire. And as always, coffee crew, keep your stitches sassy, your coffee strong, and your spirit grounded.